this being the political season, you probably could have had anybody you wanted to come here today and present to you. And I appreciate the fact that you allow us to get on your agenda and come and talk to something that is important to all of us. How many people like clean air? How many people like clean, safe water? How many people like their crawfish without any oil on them? Well, we all do. See, regardless of what party you are, we can agree that we must live on clean air. We must have water, a good, safe supply, and it must be clean. And we must have confidence in that water. And we like our land, our bayous and our places where we go raise our crops and our gardens to be safe. And that's what we're about with the Green Army, is fighting pollution. It may come out as something totally different by some people who describe us as activists. But until I came to Louisiana, I never was described as an activist. I was described as a patriot who spent 37 years, 3 months, and 3 days in uniform defending the Constitution. And the reason I became a part of this Green Army is because of the issues that we were seeing every day in the media, issues concerning Bayou corn, concerning the Danker plant, concerning issues up at Alsop, the dump in North Baton Rouge, concerning Mossville, concerning the open dump burning in Shreveport, concerning open burning in Colfax, concerning the mercury being released by the Noranda plant, and concerning the security of the water in Baton Rouge. I'm going to start out of order because we have a little video we'd like to share with you. This addressed the issue of abandoned oil wells in Louisiana. And if this don't make you a little sweaty on the brow, nothing will. Would you play that video, Jonathan?
The house all the time because it's not safe.
The state of Louisiana has close to 4,000 of these abandoned oil wells around the state. They are everywhere, on the water, in backyards, in fields, around Shreveport, Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans.
Did you make any money off the wells?
A little bit.
Seeger's operating company in Monroe has the 4th most abandoned wells, 66.
Do you feel bad for leaving an unplugged well?
No.
Why not?
I just don't. I mean, you can't, you can't, if you don't have the clout to go out and borrow money to go bankrupt to do it, there's no sense in doing it.
Derek Seeger's company should have plugged all 66 wells. Instead, he walked away and left it up to the state to pay the cost to plug and clean up.
It's about $6,000 a piece to plug, and they're stripper production. I didn't drill them in the first place. You know what I mean?
You got them from someone else.
Yes. And, you never will make enough money off of them to plug them,
So you know going in you're not plugging them.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes. Well,
Do you think that's right though?
no, but it happens everywhere.
The state has a fund that pays for plugging abandoned wells. That fund is replenished by a quarterly fee on oil and gas operators.
How much did you pay into the oil field restoration fund?
It was in the pennies. It's a fractional tax.
So like for each well, how much about?
Put it this way, it might have been like $5 or $7 a month total.
So you paid what, a couple $100 into the oil field restoration fund?
It probably wasn't even that over the years because
That's it?
Yeah, but it's based on your MCL.
See, I mean, there's no way that's going to plug the.
No.
Last year, the state plugged 43 wells, but they can't get ahead of this potential environmental hazard. That's because in the same year, they declared at least 583 wells abandoned.
I mean, some of these aren't safe.
Thanks, Jonathan. As my mama used to say, that's a crying shame. And it's happening in plain daylight, and it's happening inside the law of the state of Louisiana. That law has been written by our legislatures. It was beefed up a couple years ago, last year, Governor Jindal's administration, where the state would go after those who left those wells that had large fines. It used to be lower than $100,000. They moved it to $250,000 before the state will make you repair the land. So anything under $250,000, the incumbent is the taxpayers and this little oil fund that they pay a few dollars on each month. The other part of this bill we are trying to push is right now there's an unlimited number of wells that an operator can have in for future energy use. Future energy use is a clause that was put in by the legislature some years ago to address issues when you have low oil prices. An operator can put his well in a reserve and not use it. Well, for a small fee each year, these operators will hold several hundred wells for future energy use, but when we investigate it, it's just a transition to abandon the well and give it back to the state. Now, how many of you can do that on your own property? Abandon it and have the state come clean it up and you keep your property. What other industry has that? We've got to fix that. We've asked Representative Bishop, he's the chairman of the House Natural Resource Committee, to sponsor this bill. And he's in the oil business, he supports the oil business, but he's the head of natural resources. And on any given day, we don't have a majority in that committee as far as people who would be sympathetic or empathetic to this issue. But you know what? That same committee created these rules, and they got to fix it. And we ask the people of Louisiana to become aware and call your representative and call the governor. This needs to be fixed. This is an embarrassment. The next bill I'd like to talk about is the Baton Rouge Area Groundwater Bill. It concerns the Capital Area Groundwater Commission. This bill is presented by Representative Marcel. It's HB 180. The purpose of this bill is to restructure the board and to pull forward declaring an area of critical concern. Area of critical concern described by the state of Louisiana as a water system that is in trouble because of overuse. Our challenge to the Capital Area Groundwater Commission, and it's been studied and restudied and restudied and restudied for nearly the last 20 years. We have had some reduction in the use of groundwater by Exxon. They're down to 22 million a day, and Georgia Pacific is about 44 million a day. But East Baton Rouge Parish, which is one of 5 parishes in the center on the top of this Southern Hill aquifer, use 83% of the water coming out of that aquifer. So we're the big users in East Baton Rouge. And the influence and power of those who sit on the board, while they continue to talk about seeking solutions, the solutions keep a repeat of what we've done in the past. We think we need to have a quantum leap. We need to challenge Exxon to do just like Shell. They use river water. To do just like Dow use river water. But when we talked to Exxon, they said, hey, that's gonna cost us money. We love Exxon. I got friends and relatives working for Exxon. I got in an argument at a picnic and I started talking about Exxon, people would throw potatoes at me. And they all got a retirement plan. It's not about that. Last year, Exxon had $44 billion profit. $44 billion. We just want Exxon to do what? Use what?
River water.
Use river water. Then the next big one is Georgia Pacific. They use 44 million a day. We think that's we know it's having the impact. The USGS study and its varied opinion, but I'm of the opinion, if you can use river water, use what?
River water.
And let's take the pressure off that aquifer, because that salt water is coming in. The more fresh water we suck out, that salt water coming in over the ridge by College Drive and City Park. Next bill, Jonathan. And I've talked to this one, that's good enough, Jonathan. Open burning. In Colfax, Louisiana, we have a company called Clean Harbor. Clean Harbor is a company out of Massachusetts. Visualize this multi-billion-dollar company doing something in Louisiana they're not allowed to do in Massachusetts. Hello. There are open burning ammunition from the United States military, as well as pyrotechnics from such notable companies as Disneyland. when the pyros become expendable or Army munitions become outdated, Clean Harbor brings it to Louisiana. And they blow it in open trays. See if you can get to that picture, Jonathan. On the ground. The open tray method is an old Roman army method of getting rid of stuff. You take it out, you set it on fire. And that's what they're doing. We were up there Friday. This bill, again, is sponsored by Representative Marcel. Her grandfather was from Colfax. We sat and talked to the people. We had a great conversation. I tell you, some anecdotal information came out there. There once were 11 guards that lived in Colfax that protected this facility. One of the police jurors was there who he went to investigate what did those 11 guards die from. 9 of them died from thyroid cancer. There is a thyroid issue in that community. Our own scientists that work with Lean, Dr. Super, has done some assessment that show a pattern of health issues in that community. We've briefed that to the governor. We briefed it to DEQ. The last success we had with that was a resolution, put together a committee that caused DEQ to test the air, the land, and the water. The water and the land came back polluted. And the federal finding has been levied, and they will be fined for polluting the land and the water. We still have issues with the air. The air sampling technique was questionable because they had the air sampler on when they were not burning. So they didn't find that. We're challenging DEQ to go back and do a repeat of the air testing, as well as to put 24/7 air monitors. In the end, everybody we spoke to include myself and the folks who are working on this, we're not interested in closing the company. We just want them to do what? Stop open air burning. We did it at Camp Minden. Do it there. This will not hamper military operations. The military blow this stuff up all the time inside the impact zones that are monitored by the EPA. This company got a contract to do it on private land that they own, some 720 acres in around Colfax. And I went to a place called Bush Lane in Colfax the other day, and the first person we randomly walked up to said, "How you doing?" He's got thyroid problems. So we've got sufficient information. We're just trying to get to DEQ and the governor, along with the legislature, with this bill to come to a conclusion that there's no open air burning. Y'all agree with that one? Again, that's a no-brainer. Next slide. Go ahead, John. Drinking water. This bill presented by Representative Hunter. We have sufficient challenges across the state with our drinking water supply. We've had studies done by Wilma Subra and by Dr. Ketton out at LSU to show about 400 of our small water systems are in trouble. Last year, you remember we had emergency at St. Joe. The governor declared emergency, found the money, and this past week, our governor went up and opened that water system at St. Joe. That came with a lot of pain, and what we learned from that was once the system starts to fail, we need to test more. You with me? And that testing might be direct testing for lead, and it might be called secondary testing. Well, when we put that bill up the last time, everybody showed up. We don't want to do no secondary testing. Well, look, if you got brown water and it smells, and that's what your grandmama drinking, would you like her to have secondary testing? It's a no-brainer. But who showed up? Baton Rouge Water Company. We don't want no secondary testing. Well, it wasn't directed at you, Baton Rouge Water Company. Go mind your own business. Lobby showed up. Exxon showed up. Okay? Chemical Association showed up. They all showed up. The Rural Water Association showed up. There's something going on in these small rural water systems where corporations are trying to buy them and turn public water into private water. The bottom line at St. Joe, we gave them an $8 million water system. their water bill going from $20 a month to $65 a month. And it will probably go higher. We cannot sustain these small water systems in the state. They need to consolidate in the parish, everybody bite the bullet, and get them alone and replace these aging water systems. You can go to Mamu, brown water, and it smells. Ville Platte, brown water, and it smells. Jeanerette, brown water, and it smells. Tallulah, waterproof Louisiana, brown water, and it smells. Who want to drink brown water? Yet, Dr. Guidry over at the health department said last year, well, you know, General, that water's brown and it smells, but it's safe, but I wouldn't drink it. Hello, we got to fix this. You want to know why our kids are leaving these small towns? They don't want to drink no brown water. Next slide. Environmental justice is a bill Representative Hunter put in the last few days, and it requires testing, requires the state entities and other entities serving the public to address eliminated disproportionate environmental and human health impacts on communities of color, indigenous communities, and low-income communities. I have not discussed this in detail with Representative Hunter yet, but we will support that bill. Next one, John. Abandoned oil wells, we've covered. Next one. Air quality. This morning at 7:30, I get a call from two residents of St. Rose, Louisiana. They called me because we presented a bill for 3 years in the past about air monitoring. And what we're trying to do is if a company repeatedly has problems, that the DEQ direct the company to put air monitoring in, and the company pays for it. We got that bill out of committee twice. Last year, we were walking that bill through, and the chairman of the House Resource Committee looked at Secretary Brown and said, Secretary Brown, do we need that bill? And he leaned over in his mic with his eyes, he heard his voice, said, no, sir. We got all the authority we need. And you know what? We don't have automated air monitoring where he can direct the company to pay for it. Here's a little real life story. Secretary Brown, we worked with him. He went down to St. Rose, talked to the people of St. Rose, which is in Destrehan, St. Charles Parish. No help from the parish, no help from local legislators, by the way. He talked to the people and said, I'm gonna put air monitoring in here. Guess what date the air monitoring went in? And we didn't win yet. A year. 2 weeks ago, they called the people and said, the people called them and said, what's with the air monitoring? Said, we don't have the money. The bill that we put forward last year would have given him the authority to do what? Tell the company to put the air monitoring in. Last week, DEQ called the people of St. Rose and said, where y'all want to put the air monitoring? I said, they asked you what? Where we want to put it. That's their job. And they waited until Friday. We finally worked something out. We got some good data from Wilbur Subra, our scientists, and some data from Lean, and we picked a location. But that, as of this morning, that air monitor is not in location in St. Rose yet. And the people had a major H2S release this morning. How did they know it's H2S? Because it smelled like rotten eggs. And it's wearing them out. We got families in St. Rose, in one house, 3 generations with asthma. The grandma, the ma, and the grandchild, 12 years old. All of them with asthma. I could take you and show you. You can go talk to them. And we still don't have a resolution on air monitoring, but we're gonna push that bill hard this year. Health survey is another bill we're working. We don't have a sponsor for it yet. We need that because what we found out is that we go into a community, the data we're hearing from the people, which we call tribal data, is different what's in the cancer registry that's maintained by the Department of Public Health through LSU, Public Health. The data doesn't match. The data is so far off, it's questionable the whole database in the LSU registry, the tumor registry. It's all questionable. because it doesn't match what the people in the community said. And I have a tendency to believe the people because in a case in the Danker plant in St. Rose, in Laplace, we had a briefing from the tumor registry about how low the cancer rate was. And a lady came up to me afterwards, very emotionally charged. She said, General, I don't think their data's right. I know their data's not right. I suspect their data. She said, my husband, I stayed home for 2 years, taking care of him, died from leukemia. We rushed him to the hospital, and because he was having trouble breathing, he said on his death certificate, it said pneumonia. The data is not accurate. We got to fix that. We did have some successes last year. Representative Katrina Jackson put a bill in so we could narrow and focus in on a specific community with the tumor registry. They refused to let that data out because they said it might violate people's HIPAA privacy. By saying so many people on a certain street have cancer would violate their privacy. As opposed to saying we need to go see what's causing the cancer, they look at it the other way. I've never heard of anybody in Louisiana being sued for HIPAA violations. That's one of the things we are very good at, protecting people HIPAA, particularly if you're being poisoned by toxic fumes. We protect the hell out of that. And proud of it. They are. They say they get national awards. I think I will pause here, if you would indulge me, and I would like to address any questions or follow-ups that you might have. And again, we appreciate you doing this. I didn't do this alone. Aline, Louisiana Environmental Action Network, Mayor Lee Orr, and her son Michael, there's Kathy Waxham, our liaison, and Jonathan Henderson have been instrumental in helping us shape these bills as they go forward. And I appreciate their help, as well as the other organizations we work with, because the Green Army is a coalition of people who work with us sometimes they don't work with us. But at the end of the day, we know if we're going to change things, we got to go through the legislature. And we try to focus on these bills this time of year. So any advocacy you can give on these bills or follow up the story, we'd appreciate it. Because as you saw from that clip, this democracy will only work if the media does its job. Because of that story, we got documented information that this guy is freely shared of how he's screwing the state of Louisiana and the people of Louisiana. With that, your questions, please. Yes, sir.
General, that was a great political speech. Why don't you run for office? What you gonna run for office? That's the best speech I've heard in a long time.
Well, I tell you what, I think about that every night. I take a nap and I forget about it.
You have a whole lot of accountability.
Yes, sir.
The St. Joe solution,
Yes, sir.
you said that the water bills would basically triple and may go higher.
Yes, sir.
Is that a part of a revolving fund that they will gradually pay back that $8 million that has been put into the system?
That's the intent. That price went up to try and cover the cost. But you can imagine with 500 residents, it's a challenge. Right now, we've got a Cadillac hooked up to a Travaux, one of them cars out of Eastern Europe, because we put a new water system in, but we didn't put the money in to replace the line from the street to the house. We didn't put the money in because some of these houses back in the day when we said get rid of lead pipes, didn't get rid of lead pipes. And we didn't inspect it and made sure they got rid of lead pipes. So we got plumbing problems now. The average little house up there, it costs about $3,000 to replumb and replace that service line. We didn't put money in there for that because that, by most tradition, that's an individual responsibility. We are working with some philanthropic groups, and if you know any that would like to go do some plumbing work or would like to donate a water heater, please let me know, because those water heaters, most of their white appliances are contaminated. The water heaters and the washers have to be replaced.
How many St. Joseph's are there out there?
About 300. Obviously, St. Joseph was the tip of the iceberg, but right now we're right on the heels. With Tallulah had another major break last week with brown water running out of the main. And when these systems start to deteriorate, when the old rusted pipe break, it allowed an intrusion of the water around it. And the water table there is pretty high now because of all the rain. And many of the water in rural is in the ditch. For some reason, these geniuses put the water pipes in under the ditch. And so when the pipe breaks, that water in the ditch goes in the pipe and it contaminates. So we have the same problem in New Orleans. About 30% of the water that New Orleans purified for use is wasted in pipes that are breaking. So when the pressure goes down in New Orleans, they got to boil water for a few days because the contamination come in from seepage from the outside. So that's a continuing problem. But the big city of New Orleans, you got Downsonville. I mean, I could continue to name towns, but it's too many to remember. But we have a database on that. We probably can get you through lean with some exact towns where we know that these systems are at risk. The unusual thing is that last year in October, the legislative author, thank God for them. Boy, that's one good shot there. They went out and did an audit of Department of Health's monitoring of water, and they found the Department of Health was not doing their job. And you can pull that report up. It came in October of 2017. Much of that is because under the General's administration, he cut the Department of Health with a hatchet. He even cut DEQ in half. DEQ went from 1,200 to 600 people, and at the same time, we increased the number of plants. And that makes sense. And that's a part of the challenge we have, because the Department of Health don't have the money they need to do these administrative things. The other thing in Louisiana, we got kind of backwards. At the national level, water is handled by the EPA. In Louisiana, it's handled by the Department of Health. Now go figure that out. I don't know why we did it, but it's something nefarious under it. There's a horse in there someplace, because I see something on the ground. There's some legislator did that some years back. I don't know why they did it, but they put drinking water standards on the health department and not under DEQ, because the Clean Water Act runs through EPA, not through the Department of Health at the federal level. So that put us out of sync. Any other questions?
Are there other states that Louisiana can look towards that are doing fence line monitoring in a more productive way that we can base our own legislation on?
The best example I can give you, sir, is you can go online right now and look Chevron in California, Oakland, and you can see the quality of the air because it's posted at a constant rate for the people. That agreement was part of a settlement between Chevron and the city mayor and supported by the state and the federal government, that they have 24/7 access to air monitoring. And boy, I don't know a city in the world where we shouldn't have that other than here in Baton Rouge. Because you know, last year we had another finding in the last 2 months where our air quality for carbon is out of tolerance. So we got to drop another 2 points, 4 points? Ozone, I'm sorry. Ozone. That's why these ladies stay around. They tell me the right words. And we're out of tolerance. I do think we need to have constant air monitoring here. I came here a couple of years after Katrina, and I was standing on the balcony of the Hilton, and this smell overcame me. And the guy walked out and said, "What in the hell is that smell?" I used to smell that when I was young, living in Point Capee and come across the old bridge, but what is that smell? And this wise guy said, "That's the smell of money." How can we relate toxic smells to the smell of money? We got to get rid of them old jokes. This is real, ladies and gentlemen. If we want to see Why? One of the reasons, like the mayor of Ville Platte told me, she said, General, we got a nice farm ranch. You're ready to build a house. They went to LSU. He married this girl. They won't stay here. They won't stay here because of the water. That girl can't get used to her clothes coming out brown once she wash them in the water. They're not staying. And they're suspect of our air and our water. We got to build that confidence back into our people. A third of our income, 15% of our income comes from tourism. What's going to happen if people get suspect of our seafood in New Orleans? Because right now we got two communities, Mandeville and Hammond, releasing their sewer water after it's been treated into the lake. We also had a resolution on the Washita River. We have not found a sponsor for that resolution, but I'm working with Senator Wadsworth. He's an outdoorsman, because that water is being affected by a Georgia Pacific outfit in Crossett, Arkansas. And they're just up north of the Louisiana line, and that water they release runs into the Washita River. North of the plant, the water is blue, and south of it is black as you come into Louisiana, because of the releases that company is putting into the water. Again, I thank you for listening. Any other questions? Yes.
Have you talked to the governor about your agenda and his lens towards any of these?
And there's a sign right here, repeat the questions. And I'm sorry I haven't been reviewed. The question was, have I talked to the governor? We have talked to the governor. Loud. And we have a working group. Matter of fact, we're supposed to have a meeting tomorrow that have been postponed. But we're working through each bill that we're trying to sponsor with the legislator that has written the bill, and working with the state agency. Next meeting is scheduled to be with DEQ about the air monitoring bill and the Colfax bill. And we got a meeting coming up before our bill is presented on the capillary groundwater, and that meeting will be with DNR and Office of Conservation, Mr. IU, who supervises the capillary groundwater. We got great water in Baton Rouge. We just want to keep it. Because if Shell can do it, Exxon can do it. Use the river water. And that's the message. Thank you for asking that question, though.
To follow up on that, the Groundwater Commission has pursued these scavenger wells.
Yes, sir.
Can you discuss whether and why that is an inadequate response?
Well, there's an old saying, if you keep doing the same thing, getting the same response, that's the definition of something. And that's what we've been doing. We keep doing the same thing, getting the same response. The previous conservation secretary wrote the commission some years ago and said, make sure you have a sustainable system. I saw the paperwork, I have it somewhere in my briefcase. They wrote him back and said they need to know what the definition of sustainable is. When you don't want to do something, you don't do it. You find all kind of excuses to do it. So I'm going to give the solution again, Steve. Shell use river water. Dow use river water. Exxon can use river water. You with me? The same thing can be said for Georgia Pacific. We got a paper plant in Monroe, had the same problem. They came up with an engineering plan. They draw that water off the river. They run it through a slough, take the minerals out, and that's what they use in the plant and to keep their logs wet. That's the bottom line. It's the 21st century. We can keep messing our water up. When I was a young boy, I used to go fishing out in Falls River. We'd catch buckets of fish. It was like a subsistence on Good Friday. If you want to fish, you better go catch it, because you wasn't eating meat in our house in Point Capite. And we go stand on the bank and we get buckets of fish. My cousin Norman, he can tell you that. You go there now, what we've got in Falls River. That used to be the party place for Baton Rouge. Used to be so many boats out there you could hardly see the place. And what it's turned into. Why? Because we don't have standards on protecting our water. We let everybody go put a camp up there, put bulkheads in. When you put a bulkhead in and you extend your campground by 10 feet, you kill the place where the fish breed. Fish breed in that little soft spot as the water come up. When you put a bulkhead, you put a straight angle, they can't breathe there. And what has happened to Falls River? We've seen that great body of water just do what? People saying under their breath is Poop Lake. That thing should be drawing people from all over the place going there and recreating, bringing commerce to Point Capee Parish. But because we didn't put sewer systems in, we let everybody go do what? A 55-gallon drum underneath the ground. And when they rust out, what happens? Where does that stuff go? We've messed that lake up. And we used to go stand in there waist high fishing and catch beautiful fish. Used to have fishing tournaments there and boating outfits. It was the center of social outing from people in this part of the state. And we let that water go. Same thing with the Washita River. We can do better than that. We are better people than that. We got to tell them, hey, we want you to clean the water and clean the air. You can do anything you want. We like your jobs, but you don't have the right to destroy our water. Remember, most of these are multinational corporations. Multinational corporations is using most of that water. We've been blessed with natural resources. We should be one of the most well-resourced states in the country. We only got 4.3 million people. Yet 40% of our budget comes from the federal government. We can do better than that. So I appreciate the opportunity. Again, any other questions? Reverend, you don't have a question?
I don't get to ask one, I'm not.
Oh, you're not, that's right, you're not. Well, you ought to join the press club. Thank y'all again for indulging us and allowing us to come speak for you. Thank you very much.